Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Tom at Cerulean Bay, and what a busy 2 months we have had over here. Wow, there's just been so much going on. I cannot believe it is already mid-July. During the last 2 months, we've had a number of great guests on the show, and we just took some really valuable feedback from some of our listeners and customers and said, you've got a lot of info out there and you should really be pulling this together into some usable format. And I thought, you know what, that would be really, really cool if we did that. So today I want to tell you about a new series of courses that we're doing, as if we could really fit that into our already busy schedule, but we did, and they are coming out very, very nice. In fact, we're actually ready to launch. So we do have a new tropical interior design program for you, which is available, and we're going to have a link to it in our show notes. We've got a link to it on our website at ceruleanbay.com. And this is actually prompting us to do a redesign of our website too, because we really want to focus on the school. We want to promote the program that we have, because once we really started pulling together the mountains, and I mean mountains of information that we have, and the research that we've done over the last 6 years since we first kicked off Cerulean Bay back in 2019, we really thought, you know what, it does make sense to sort through this, pull it together, put it into a user-friendly format that people can use to create the tropical escape of their dream at home. And it is something that we talk about so much on the show. And so, yeah, it does make sense that we just go ahead and pull it together into a nice, usable format. So in the program, which we have named Tropical Design at Home, very cool. So in relation to our show here, Tropical Escape at Home, we now have Tropical Design at Home. In there, you will find a free sneak preview, and it's just some snippets of just some of the course content and the assessment content that we have, which I'll get to those in just a second. But in there, you can go ahead and just take a look at the formatting of the particular course that we have. We do have a pre-read for you in there, which goes to the Tropical Self-Discovery Assessment, which I'll get to in a second. But you can look at the table of contents for the whole Tropical Home Transformation Guide that we offer. The content to the overall program is very in-depth. There's a lot to it. So in this sneak peek, we've, again, just got some snippets for you, but you're going to see just a little bit about color psychology and perception. We've got a welcome video for you. We do share a chapter from one of the modules in the guide about tropical woods and materials. And that gets into just some of the tropical hardwoods that are used to create actual home furnishings. We take a look at regional influences. So you've got cultural influences and architectural styles and then just artistic concepts and things that come out of the South Pacific, things that come out of Southeast Asia, things that come out of other tropical areas on our planet. So they're all very different. And we do like to point those out because you can really focus on one or more. You can create a nice blend in your home. So you've got a real global tropical feel in your home. Very, very cool. And we also touch briefly then on the psychology of biophilic design. And that, for anyone who's not familiar with it, is simply a way of merging the outdoors with the indoors. And one of the examples that I really like to give is when Amazon built their spheres in the Seattle area. And these are these kind of geometric spheres, office spaces, which have a lot of landscaping inside and full-size trees. And they're very integrated with outdoor working spaces. And they go ahead and bring all of that indoors. So you've got this really cool indoor-outdoor concept, which is fully indoors in all actuality, but it's just a great way of getting people who spend all their time indoors in an office to connect with nature. So when you're doing a tropical design at home, we try to encourage this concept as well, especially if you live in a very climate-friendly place where you've just got a lot of great weather all year. If you happen to have large sliding doors, French doors, maybe you've got a screened-in porch, maybe you've just got a beautiful view with large windows. There's just ways to connect those two areas. You've got your outdoors with your indoors, and we get very in-depth into the different design styles and the color palettes and all of that in the transformation guide. So that's what's in the sneak peek, which you can get. Then we also have the Tropical Self-Discovery Assessment. And this is assessment. It's available for $29. We only do give a 30-day access to it, though. And the reason for that is we want to be working with people who are really serious about creating a tropical escape at home, who are really serious about their love for the tropics. And really, if you are one who just is craving a vacation and you're finding that just a lot of relaxation and rejuvenation is missing from your life, we highly recommend you to take action on that. And if you love the tropics, we're here to guide you in that right direction. I mean, you can consider me your coach in that space because this is something I've studied for a long time. I've implemented what I can here at home, and we're still not done here at home. But we want to work with people who are serious about doing this, who are very keen on taking a look at their current living situation. So this is something that we're limiting to just a 30-day access because we do believe that this is something that should be prioritized. And then once you're complete, then you have your results in hand, which means that you can decide if you want to move forward with the Tropical Home Transformation Guide or not. So whether you live alone, whether you're just with a significant other or your spouse, or whether you've got a house full of kids and everything that goes with that, everybody needs some time off. Everybody needs some space away. And when you can't take a vacation for whatever reason, whether it's just totally busy schedules, whether funds are just really tight, whatever it is, you can create a particular space in your home, which is off limits to the rest of the world. And that is where you can go. So in this assessment, we offer a very in-depth experience in there where you will go through what we call an initial reflection. We want people to create a mental before picture and a mental after picture of what their ideal tropical escape is like. And in the initial reflection, we do take you through the steps about how to do that to create your before picture. This is where you can literally imagine anything you want. There's no holds barred. Budget isn't an issue. If you could turn this bedroom or this office or this spare room, this family room, whatever it is, into a really cool tropical escape where you could really feel the vibes and you could really experience a lot of what you would feel at a tropical resort, what would you do to it? And then we have 69 questions. Yes, you heard that right. 69, where we encourage you to think very, very deeply about some things. These are not just simple yes and no questions. You can go ahead and freeform your text in there to write your responses. And we really encourage you to take your time in the assessment. We've got 8 sections in these questions where you are going to be taking a good look at things that are about you and what you've tried before when it comes to any home design or interior design projects, what your biggest challenges might have been. We get into colors and textures and what you like and what you don't like. We get into your emotional connection to the tropics, whether you've traveled or not. We've got a series of questions in there geared to get you thinking about how much you really think you know about the tropics, how much you think you really love about them. We look at your current situation at home. These are questions that pretty much any interior designer would ask you during an initial consultation if they were to come to your home. And this looks at your current lifestyle in your home, who's living there, who's using what spaces and for what. And then the room itself that you would be using for your tropical escape. You get into the actual purpose of the room now, and then what the future purpose is going to be. You take a look at everything that is currently in the room now. Will everything be replaced? Are there certain pieces you're going to be keeping? And then this is where we get into personal lifestyle preferences too, because we want to make sure that whatever you are envisioning for your tropical escape is actually then going to align with the lifestyle that you see yourself living too. And many times people do end up with a disconnect there. They've got a really cool visual about what they want to see and what they want to feel, but then the actual life going on in the house doesn't align with that. And a good example of that is when you think you're going to be able to call a space your own, but then suddenly the kids are in there all the time, or maybe there's just other uses that end up encroaching into that space. So we really do help you align your vision of what it is you want to see versus what's going to be going on lifestyle-wise to make sure that those things are a match. And we look at what is possible and what's not possible given with what you have to work with. So as we've said many times, as much as we would love to bring that crashing ocean wave into your living room and just have the sea breeze flowing through your house with the coconut palm swaying outside, obviously that's not possible to do. So we look at what is actually possible with the space. and the indoors and the outdoors, if there's anything we can do to tie those things together. We look at your visual and aesthetic preferences. What is it that visually that you really, really like to see more than something else or over something else? For some people, if you ask them, what is it exactly about that resort that you loved so much? They kind of have a hard time telling you. So we go into the details of everything that you can be seeing at these places. And then what is it specifically about those to make sure, is it truly tropical? Are we getting now into more of a coastal scene, something into a non-tropical space? And there's a big difference between the two, because what we really want to do is prevent a situation where you're putting a lot of time and effort and money into something. And then when you're done, you're like, this isn't what I was planning. This isn't what I was envisioning. All of these things are just off. We totally help you avoid all of that. So that's visual and aesthetic preferences. Then in section 7, we get into plants and landscaping. And this works for people who love real plants and for people who can't have real plants. If you've got to have those fake ones, no worries at all. We've got you covered there. And then we get into sounds, sense, and sensory experiences. And this is something too that a lot of people don't think about. When they travel, they're like, well, I saw this, I saw that, we went and did this, we went and did that. But if you really ask them then to tie the sounds, what is it that you heard that maybe was very appealing, that was very calming, other than the soothing water? This could have been other sounds of nature. Then there's the scents. What did you smell when you were there? A lot of coconut and a lot of citrus and a lot of florals and things like this. You can have as little or as much of that as you want in your tropical escape. And it is amazing how different scents can really help you recall certain experiences. They can help recreate certain experiences. This is why things like aromatherapy are so important. And, a lot of people, I think, don't give aromatherapy the credit that it's due, but it can be very beneficial. It can be very helpful to people who are just living a very stressful life. And when you have certain scents that just help you to recall wonderful, relaxing times, those kinds of vibes can come back. It really is possible. So yes, we do look at sounds and scents and those whole sensory experiences. Then once you have completed these 69 questions, that's where you now move into the final reflection. And in the final reflection, we basically just have you go back to your space in the house where you are going to be creating your little tropical escape. We have you kind of replicate the setup there, create the same scenario and circumstances when you did the initial reflection. And now that you have a much better understanding of what it is that you love about the tropics, maybe what is not so important, maybe there were things you thought about that you thought were important, maybe they're not now, but you've aligned all of this mentally. Now you just go back and you're going to have your notes that you've made. There is some note taking in this. So you're going to have your notes about your before picture. And after you complete this, you're going to be able to compare the two. And for some people who are very sure about what they like, they know what it is they want, you might not see a big difference between your before and after state. And that's perfectly fine. What you've done is just confirmed that you're on the right track. And yeah, it's going to be a lot easier for you to now go out and start looking for some new things that you might need as compared to someone else, those other people who might need to put some more focus on what they're going to need because there's just a lot more uncertainty now that can really come into play when there is a big difference between your before and after picture. It's like now what you really thought you liked, you're now looking at it going, whoa, after these questions, this made me think, I really do prefer this and this and this over that. Or I really do need to consider something new as opposed to what I was imagining before because this something new would work so much better in my house. So that's really the purpose of the before and after picture. Again, before it's kind of anything goes. It's your dream escape that you're thinking of. And then the after one is now more of the practical image. It's what is feasible, what is doable. You now have what you can work with at your fingertips so that when it comes time to do any sourcing and you're out there shopping, whether in person or online, you now have some boundaries to work within. It's not going to be this random free-for-all when you walk into a store or you're looking at a million things online. You've identified largely the kinds of things that you like, those are the things you're going to be looking for. Whether it's paint, whether it's furniture, accents, whatever it is, you've got kind of a narrow, defined list. It is going to save you a ton of time. It's going to save you a ton of money because you won't be making any mistakes with it. The last thing we want anybody to be doing is buying things that then they need to start returning and shipping back, or just going through all that hassle and then paying restocking fees, and what a time waste all of that is. So we're here to help you prevent all of that. We really do think with this assessment that you can nail things from start to finish the first time. And it's just going to be a whole lot more efficient, and you're just going to be so much more mentally free. We want this to be a very relaxing, a very happy, a very fun experience to create your tropical escape, because it's all about fun and just having a place to call your own and relax. So then once you're done with the assessment, now you're armed with all this information. How do you use it? That's where we really encourage people then to move on to the Tropical Home Transformation Guide. The guide is very lengthy, it's very in-depth, but even though it's packed full of information, it's very easy to read, it's very easy to move through. We've got it broken down into 12 different modules. So with this guide, you will be able to move through the whole process of creating your tropical home escape. And depending on how DIY you are, this is where it is a little easier for some people than for others. And if you do need to bring in any help, we think it would be very, very minimal. You might simply be able to get away with just calling a family member or a good friend to help you, maybe with some painting, maybe to help you with some measuring, doing some very simple installation type of things, because, to avoid having to call in the pros, that's another reason why we have you go through the assessment, is so that you can define what it is you really want. If at the end of the assessment you discover, you know what, I need to start tearing down a wall, or I need to rip out all these windows and put in some French doors, or you start making some structural changes to a room, that's where, unless you know how to do that, you're a contractor of sorts, or you've done that kind of work before, obviously you've got to bring in the professional so that it's done right. And when you start getting into the whole structural scene, now you're talking about electricians, maybe any potential plumbing. As things start getting moved around, projects can snowball very, very quickly into a big ball of work and a big ball of expense. So in the guide, going back to that, that's where we think any help that you need will be minimal at most. And there's just so much in there that, people can truly do on their own. And once you get into the guide, you will see this. But just as a quick side note, we are limiting access to the guide for a period of 12 months from the date of purchase. And that's just because if you're very serious about doing this, this is where this kind of a design project gets moved up the priority scale in your life. It's something that you want to do. You want to be able to achieve it in a certain amount of time so that you can start to experience the benefits of it as quickly as possible. Because again, the whole goal here at Tropical Escapes at Home is to bring elements of relaxation into your life, to bring that peace, that quiet, that sense of escape. When you can't take a vacation, we want you to be able to use this retreat in your home as the next best thing. So there is some priority to it. There is some importance to this. And for the protection of our own content, there's a lot of hard work, and a lot of research that goes into pulling all of this together for you. But just as most classes that you would take online at any other school, you only have a limited time to access those. And usually upon course completion, that's it. The course is over. You don't have access to it unless you happen to have purchased any physical books or, physical version of the course, which is something that we don't currently offer. Everything is online. So again, access is limited to 12 months. And you will be able to download any responses that you've given in the guide. We do have a few areas where we do have you answer a few more questions just to bring clarity to some particular things. But let's just go ahead and run through the modules that we have in the transformation guide. These start out with vision planning and budgeting. In there, you're going to be looking at what makes a great space work, how to define your room's purpose. In there, we look again at the needs that you have, lifestyle needs, design goals. We look at your particular style preferences. We look at the core elements of tropical design. We look at how to create a mood board or an inspiration board. And there is a lot of info out there online about how to do that. But I have to say, I was personally disappointed with a lot of what I saw because some of it was just super high level and superficial and didn't go into enough detail. Or they were literally, whoever was providing the content was just putting you through design school and it was just way over the top and too much. It doesn't need to be a super in depth, lengthy thing. And the beauty of what we're doing here is it's all tropically focused. So, right there, you're eliminating a lot of the other non tropical design styles. Our focus is creating a tropical mood board, and you are going to love that when you see it. That is just going to be an additional boundary for you to follow to keep you on track. And then we do touch on budgeting because just another last thing you want is to be financially stressed. Doing this should not create any financial stress. It should be something that is affordable for you. Budgeting is something that's very, very important because when you get into design, it can get expensive very quickly if you don't stay within your guardrails. So you're going to hear us say that a lot. Just stay in your guardrails there, stay in your lane, and you are going to be so happy at the conclusion of this that, you know what, I stayed on budget and I was able to create just this amazing space for myself. So that we touch on all that in budgeting. In the next module, we get into color palette mastery. Another module goes into measuring, and you will learn how to measure like a pro. And it is not as hard as people make it out to be. And you don't need to be a mathematician when you have some difficult things to measure, like angled ceilings or uneven walls and architectural detailing. We show you how to deal with all of that. Not hard to do at all. We also then discuss furniture layout. You know, when you have an empty room, where should everything go? At first glance, it looks like it could be totally easy. But then when you get everything in there, it's just a jumble. It's just no real proper flow. People have a hard time maybe moving around, especially if you're entertaining or something like this. We also look at decluttering. Clutter is a real problem for some people. And no, we're not talking about those major hoarding issues like sometimes you see in those terrible TV shows, but decluttering, it's just simply having too much stuff in a particular little space and your eye just doesn't know what to look at. You want your tropical escape to have a real visual flow to it, where as your eye moves around the room, it's just a very natural connecting the dots type of thing that happens. And when you stand back and look at the whole thing, it's one unified look. You don't have something that looks out of place or there's just too much of this over there. We take you through all of that so that you have one picture perfect thing to look at when everything is done. And then it's just up to you to keep it that way. But so yeah, we look at decluttering, we look at room sizes, we look at focal points and anchors. A separate module goes into walls and windows. We will cover placement and hanging heights, how to create gallery walls. And then there's those tropical window treatments. A lot of people don't realize the number of options that are out there now for windows. And these are things that you can do if you're very, very careful with your measuring. You can do it. I've seen it myself when I used to work with customers that took the measurements and ordered the product, and then they were able to install it correctly on their own or pay the pros to come out and do it. Costs a little bit more money, but you know it's going to get done right. And if there's a mistake made, it's on them. But we get into a lot of cool window treatments. You know, we talk about curtains and draperies, and yes, there is a difference between the two. It's subtle, but there is a difference. We look at all the different blinds that are out there, different shades. We look at valances. We look at cornice boards, the difference between those two. Most people couldn't tell you what the difference is, but we take care of that for you. We're going to look at different tropical furnishings. We're going to get into the styles of furnishings, tropical woods, choosing the right furniture for your space. And then we get into the fabrics because that's super, super important. Again, if you go back and you imagine your lifestyle in the room, this is your tropical escape. You're going to close that door, have your favorite beverage in your hand, and you just want to sit down in that perfect chair for your space. And what kind of fabric is on that chair? Who else is going to be using the space? If it's just you, then you can have that expensive fabric that's maybe $300 a yard and is just absolutely amazing. But if you've got kids coming in the room or maybe you've got pets, it's like, well, suddenly we don't need to be spending $300 a yard on fabric. And trust me, good fabrics are not cheap. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on them, but we do go into some really good fabric types, which are good for very active households. They're less expensive, but they're durable and they're easy to clean. And then moving on to some other topics here. Again, this is all part of the home transformation guide. We get into floors and the different flooring options. We're going to look at tropical hardwoods. We're going to look at stone. We look at ceramic and porcelain and the difference between those. We get into rugs, and we do take a look at carpet, even though carpets are typically not used in authentic tropical spaces, because wall-to-wall carpeting typically does trap heat, and most of them are not good with constant moisture or high humidity levels. So that's why when you go to the tropics, you're not going to see a lot of carpeting, if any at all. And rugs are good, though. Rugs are a cool thing, depending on where they are. So yeah, we get into rugs. We get into lighting, and we absolutely love lighting because it's just an art form in and of itself. Lighting is very, very cool. We get into color temperature, and that has to do with the actual warmth. Is it a cool white? Is it a warm glow? We look at the brightness levels. This is where you will realize that the days of just looking at simple incandescent bulbs with wattage are long gone. Now we are also looking at lumens, and we're looking at kelvins. And we won't drag you too far into the technicalities of that, we promise, but they are important to know, especially with all of the energy efficient bulbs out there and the LED lighting that's available. You now can have very energy efficient bulbs, which are as bright as the sun. Some of those can turn your living room or your tropical escape into a hospital operating room, which is what we absolutely do not want. So yes, this is a very good module. And it will help you to get those right bulbs from the get-go, because if you know what you're looking at with a package of light bulbs at the store and you see things like 5000K, that's going to be very white. It's going to be very bright. You don't want that. But things are going to make more sense. So the goal here again, no returns, no trips back to the store to have to take things back. We want to help eliminate all of that. So we have yet another module here. This is where you get into decor. We get into accents and accessories. And we have taken the time to define the two separately because we find there is a difference. And when the two words are not used correctly, it can lead to misunderstandings when you're trying to buy something. It's kind of hard to explain, but we've seen it happen. So that's one of the reasons why we wrote this module the way we did. So yes, we get into all of that. And we, again, focus on tropical accents and accessories versus other looks. And we will take a look at the other looks to help you stay within your guardrails. We also take a look at working with neutrals, because in tropical design, there's a lot of color and it can be very bold, especially when you're looking at things from the South Pacific, from certain areas of the Caribbean. A lot of bold colors, and which is wonderful. We love bold colors, but too much of anything is too much. So we get into how to work with neutrals, how to tone things down. And neutrals can be very boring when they're on their own, but when you use them correctly now to bring those bold colors down to earth, so to speak, neutrals can be a really good friend too, because they really do help to balance everything out. And in this same module, we will also talk about the design of your home. It is actually chapter 4 of module 9, and it is called Your Tropical Escape is About You, Not Your House. And we are very specific in that module because there's just a big misconception out there. And I saw this when I was a realtor. I saw this when I worked at Ethan Allen. I've just seen it in all of my design research that because certain people live in a particular style of a house, they think they are limited to decorating the inside of the house for that architectural style. And nothing could be further from the truth. And to be blunt, this is where I don't care what the rest of the design world says, because when you're in the tropics, it's casual, it's carefree, it's fun, it's relaxing. And if that's what you like, you can bring that into any room in your home, no matter what it looks like, plain and simple. And we've got some great imagery in there, which actually uses an Italian villa in Umbria. And I know not everyone owns an Italian villa, but it is a very rustic farmhouse looking interior, but it is decorated in a very kind of cool contemporary tropical style, which I wouldn't have even thought about doing. I was initially looking at these pictures and I thought this would be a very hard space for the average person to decorate on their own. So I thought we're going to just go ahead and use this. It'll be the perfect example of what you can do, and you don't have to worry about what anyone else thinks. This is your space. That's why we love what we do here. This is your space. You do what works for you. And it doesn't matter if you live in some particular neighborhood or city where everything's just like super trendy and everybody kind of keeps up with each other. No, toss that out the window. This is the tropics. This is what you would experience if you went to Hawaii or to Fiji, or you get into Bali. You're getting into some really cool places. That interior should look like something that's going to help you recreate those tropical vibes. So there we go. I could go on tons and tons and tons about decor and accents because they really do define a space, but I've got to move on here. So we're also going to look at plants. And as I mentioned earlier, we do look at the biophilic design concept, which is bringing the outdoors in. And it is a wonderful marriage of the two when you can really make it work, that you have the outdoors and the indoors just kind of blending together, whether the spaces physically open up onto each other or not. So very, very cool concept. And then we just look at simple house plants and how you can turn those into awesome statement pieces. But for those of you who don't want to bother with real plants, perfectly fine. That is awesome. No worries. There are some excellent fake ones out there. They are expensive. I am going to say, as some people would say, plastic plants are cheap. Well, the ones that look like plastic, yeah, those ones are cheap. But you can get some very high quality plants, and with some proper care as well, you got to keep them clean. Dusting is a big thing, whether they're real, whether they're fake. Just like anything else in your house, you've got to keep the dust off of it. Dust, it just doesn't look nice when everything gets dusty. And plants, whether they're real or fake, they will really show off that dust. And one reason why dust is so much more noticeable on both real and fake plants as opposed to anything else in your room, it's because plants are found outside. They're in the wild. You don't find dusty plants outside. The weather is always keeping them clean. Whether it's the rain or the wind or whatever, you don't go outside and find dusty plants. So when you see dusty plants in a room, they stand out more than dusty tabletops or dusty accents or anything else, because it's just not a natural look. So yeah, you got to keep those plants clean, whether they're real or not. And then for those with allergies, we totally understand, because I get the allergy thing going sometimes too, to certain things that are on the outside. Thank God, I love my indoor plants. But allergies are no fun. And if you are allergic to any kind of molds or mildewy situations, this is just a big disclaimer that we put out there, because in the tropics, there's a lot of plants. And in the tropics, it rains a lot. Here in Houston, it's pretty close to being tropical, except for a few months out of the year, everything molds to death. So when you've got indoor plants, there are mold spores. There can be mold in there, which is not visible. And, to most people, it's no big deal. It doesn't bother them. You don't really see it. No big whoop. But if you've got allergies and you're mold sensitive, you're going to be miserable. So this is where we recommend that you don't at least have plants in the bedroom. You can maybe have them in other parts of the house. If you're in a climate-friendly area where you can keep your windows open a lot, that helps to alleviate the problem very well. But yes, just your word to the wise out there, if you've got any kind of mold sensitivities, mildew sensitivities, you're probably going to have to deal with the fake plants in the house, because it's just a fact. As you water them, now you've got moisture sitting there. And depending on how humid your environment is, that can really encourage some mold growth. So there, enough about the mold. Let's move on to where you can find stuff. We have a whole module on sourcing and where to find stylish tropical decor. And you do want to keep it stylish. You want to keep it cool. You want to keep it real. We get into how to shop. It's basically how to shop. And there is an art form to shopping for tropical stuff. Obviously, there's in-person shopping. We give you recommendations on when you should shop in person if possible. Then there's online shopping. For the big, huge convenience that online shopping has become, it's got its drawbacks too. And I will say, I am a fan of online shopping, but then I'm not. Certain things, it's no problem, but for other things, online shopping just doesn't work. So we're going to get into those specific products. And then we are big fans of secondhand. When you get into tropical stuff, authenticity is key. You don't want your tropical escape to look like something that was produced in China. There's just no nice way to say it, where it's cheap, it's mass produced, it looks like something that anybody else could have in their house. Stay away from that. Run for your life. There's no authenticity there. So this is the beauty of secondhand sources in tropical design, because that's where a lot of authenticity will be found, a lot of classical pieces, original pieces which are no longer made. So we've got great sourcing in there. And then finally, in Module 12, this is where we get into the final touches before your big reveal. And the big reveal might just be for you. If it's your private tropical escape, no one else needs to know about it. But if it's something you want to show off to friends and family, we've got tips in there for how to just kind of touch things up before that big reveal, and just some added tips for how to have some extra fun with that. And then after your reveal, you're done. You've arrived at your tropical escape. This is the moment where we wish we could go and visit every single tropical escape that's made out there. This is where in our little school, we're setting things up where if people want to share imagery, they can. We want to build a little community in there. I'm new to doing this, to running the community space in a school, so bear with me as we launch this, but you guys can help. This is where I think it would be fun if you choose to do the tropical assessment, and then if after doing the assessment, you choose to move on to the guide, because we also do have a disclaimer in the assessment. Not everybody wants a tropical escape at home. If you've paid $29 for the assessment and you realize, you know what, this isn't for me, you're done, and there's no pressure to move on. So that's the kind of feedback we're going to want in the community as well. But for people who do move forward with the guide, then we want to see how it turned out. We want people to share their before and after pictures. Take a picture of the space right now, really, after the conclusion of this podcast. Go take a picture of it and just keep it on your phone, store it away somewhere so that you have that before picture. And then when you're done with the transformation guide, take a picture of it after. I mean, we'd love to celebrate that with you. And what you've done to your space could really be of benefit to other people who are struggling. And that's just another important point I want to make for today's show, is just as much as we're here to help you, that's my biggest desire, is to help people get to their tropical escape, no matter what. I mean, everybody needs a break. Life is just so stressful. The world is always a stressful place. It doesn't matter who's running what out there. It's just always a stressful place. So people need their space. This is why people go on tropical vacations. Just look at the number of people that take tropical vacations every year. The tropics is one of the number one places people visit. It's up there with the number of people who take ski vacations, which is huge. It's just super popular. So creating a tropical escape at home fits right in there when you can't take that trip. Well, for some people, it's going to be a lot easier to do this than others. Some people are just more creative than others. Some people are naturally inclined in the DIY space. I'm not, to be perfectly honest. There's a lot of DIY stuff I love, but there's things that I just can't do. I can't work with wood. I just don't have the eye for it. I don't have the patience for it, but I know what I want. I could design my own furniture if I really wanted to, and then pay somebody to make it, but maybe that's another project for another day. But yeah, I'm not a woodworker. Plumbing is another thing. I can install fixtures all day long, but when it comes to actually working with plumbing and pipes and stuff, something's going to leak. So don't ask me to help with your plumbing. Something's going to leak somewhere, and then we're all going to be pulling out our hair. And yeah, plumbing, me and water, it's like, in that sense, I love my pool out back, but if I've got to fix anything with the pool, I got the pool guy coming out. So yeah, some people are just more DIY than others. And then when it comes to things like color or design in general, some people just have a better eye for it. Some people are just more artistically inclined. I ran into this when I worked at Ethan Allen, and there were people who had a lot of money. They could come in, and Ethan Allen is not a cheap place to shop, but it's a wonderful store. I absolutely love it to this day. I love what they carry. And they would come in, but they had no clue what to put in their house. And we offered the free design service, and I loved going to people's homes and and helping them make their choices and, just to decide what would work and what wouldn't work with the fabric samples and all of this. But it was like when I was a realtor too. And I just have to share this quick story that when I was both a listing agent and a buyer's agent, and when I was working with buyers and we would go out and look, for everybody out there that's bought a home, you know what that's like. Some homes are furnished because it's what I call a used home. Someone's lived in it before. Or it's a model home, which nobody's lived in, and you can tell it's a model home because most homes don't ever look like that. Or it's an empty house. There's nothing in it. So when you take somebody who has a very hard time visualizing their stuff in another space, you're going to run into scenarios where you take them into a house that's already got someone else's stuff in it because people are living there. They can't get past it. They would tell me, show me an empty house. I just can't picture my stuff in here. Well, I'm not a magician. I couldn't just produce the exact same house in an empty version. And then vice versa. I would take people to an empty house, nothing in it at all. It's not staged for sale or anything. And they're like, I need to see stuff. I need to see it so I can imagine it in relation to my stuff. I mean, it goes both ways. So not to digress here, but if you can share your before and after pictures once we get our little community going, that would just be so wonderful to help other people. And I truly believe that people really do want to help other people. And when you get into a happy space like the tropics and creating tropical designs and, you want to be part of a little tropical community where you're sharing ideas and just looking for new inspiration, you're helping other people. I mean, how wonderful is that? To help other people get to their own version of a tropical escape. I mean, I just love that. I just think it's cool. So there you have it, everyone. That is Tropical Design at Home. That is our little school, which we have just launched. And again, the link to it is in the show notes for today. And I've got a link to it on our website as well. Or you can go to ceruleanbay.learnworlds.com, and that will take you to our little course selection. I am going to be adding some things on there. One thing I want to add is coaching sessions as well, because I realize too that there are some people that are very good with just reading through some content, maybe watching an occasional video, and they're good to go. And then there's other people that just need a little bit more interaction. And I want to be available to help people who have any questions. Again, I do consider myself just to be your tropical design coach. So I want to make myself available to people who would need to maybe bounce some ideas off of me or just get my opinion about things. We can do that. I will go ahead and have a link to my calendar where you can go ahead and schedule sessions there. So there's information about how the sessions work on the school website. So go ahead and check that out. And yeah, let's do this. I think it'll be super fun. I'm excited. I want you guys to be excited about it because, again, you've heard us say a million times, having your own tropical escape at home is just fun. It's wonderful. And we're really so happy to have been able to pull all of this information together for you to use in a quick and easy format because, again, in today's world, there's just too much information out there. So with that, if you can just go ahead and share us with your family and your friends and everyone you can think of, there are some more things that we're going to be putting out there as some free content just to help people get a better idea of who we are and what we do with little tidbits of info that they can put to use immediately. And we're also kicking off a newsletter, a weekly newsletter I almost forgot to mention. So just a weekly newsletter that I'm putting together. And just lots of ways where we can just stay engaged and interact with each other and just enjoy the tropics from home. So yes, check us out in our little school. Thanks so much again for listening. And I really hope to be working with you as a student coach type of thing here. I think it would be a lot of fun and just help us spread the word. So have a great week, everyone. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy. And I wish you just tons of tropical inspiration. We will get together again soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.